You've seen the best.
You've seen the worst.
Now here's the rest of both worlds.
I'm GayFesh, onegaishimasu.
And I'm Ari, and if I wasn't a consummate professional and an android, I'd find this entire procedure insulting.
And today we will be discussing the Star Trek The Next Generation episodes The Icarus Factor and Pen Pals. But first, well, it's April now, which means that Star Trek is no longer on Netflix.
I know, I hate it. I had to watch these episodes on Paramount Plus. It's so bad. I have Paramount Plus through Prime because that was just the easiest way to sign up for it. But I hate it. I hate it on there. And the subtitles are bad. There was like 5 or 6 subtitle mistakes. One said out of forts. I can't remember what they were trying to, out of sorts, but it said out of forts. It's just, I hate it. It's a bad, like the only benefit that it has is that on Prime, when you pause a scene, you can see what characters and actors are in the scene, which is nice because I'm constantly looking at IMDb when I'm watching Star Trek to see who people are. So it's nice to have that, but it's not worth the bad subtitles and the, I don't know.
Yeah, because I'm keeping current with Star Trek and all new Star Trek's on Paramount Plus, and yeah, I've noticed the bad subtitles, and it's not just on TNG, it's everything.
Oh, so it is okay. I thought maybe it was like an old file or something, and they just hadn't bothered because we know that Netflix is fine with the subtitling. The subtitling on Netflix is really perfect.
Good. Yeah, like they'll even position them like by which character is talking sometimes. Like
they'll
Netflix
go
does a
around
really good
if
job
it's
with
going to
that.
cover up important information. I really like that. Yeah, I just assumed that across the board, all shows had the same like subtitling like built into like their coding or whatever. I had no idea each different service had to subtitle. But now I know because there was like 5 mistakes in this one episode. Or 2 episodes, I suppose.
Well, they should probably just slip somebody at Netflix a $5 so that they can get their subtitles.
I get why they want to have it all on Paramount Plus. I think having Star Trek all in one place makes sense. It's annoying to those of us who don't want to have to pay for every single service, but like you said, I'm already paying for Paramount Plus, so it's not that big of a deal. I didn't have to sign up for something extra like when I had to sign up for Peacock to get The Office because it left Netflix, but they're really starting to pull me thin with all these different streaming services.
When Netflix was the only game in town, piracy went down so much because everyone's like, wait, $10 a month?
And I can get whatever I want.
Yeah. But now everything is so fragmented. It's just like, if you want to get everything, you're just looking at paying as much as you would have for cable. And like the whole point of streaming was we were trying to get away from
cable,
cable model. But now we're just back at it. And now everyone's just pirating stuff again.
I'm not surprised because it's like when I log in to watch TV now, because I haven't paid for cable for years and years and years. But when I log into my Xbox, which is what I use to watch TV, I have to look at like 7 different streaming services and think, which one do I want to flip through for something to watch, which also makes it irritating because I have to think, okay, I'll go look at Disney Plus. Oh, there's nothing new on there I need to watch. And then I flip through them and it's really annoying because you get fatigue. It's like fatigue of trying to just look through all the options. Just, I want to see what I want to see and it's annoying,
At least with, stuff like if you're using Amazon or, like an Apple TV, it will like just get a list of shows that are on, all the different services that you have attached to it. So you can just browse through it there and it'll just go straight from there to whatever appropriate app, which it's kind of needed at this point. So that's nice. But yeah, if we could go back to paying, hell, even if Netflix was like the only game in town and it was like $25 a month,
I'd pay that.
Yeah, versus what we're doing now, it's,
And even when Netflix was the only game in town, I paid for, like, HBO and stuff because I always wanted to see the higher quality content shows and stuff. And then I'd go through, like, I'll add Showtime for 3 months, and I'd watch Showtime for 3 months, catch up on all the shows I was behind on Showtime, and then kill that streaming. And now I'm having to do that with every streaming thing. Am I watching anything on Netflix right now, or have I just thrown them $15 a month for the last 4 months and I haven't even watched anything? I'm having to pay attention to that kind of stuff, and it's really irritating. Anyway, now we're going to talk about the Icarus Factor, which is the 14th episode of the 2nd season of TNG. It premiered on the 24th of April, 1989. The teleplay was by David Assel and Robert McCullough. The story was by David Assel, and it was directed by Robert Iskov.
So we meet Riker's dad in this episode.
Yeah, that's the plot. Riker has a dad.
And his dad is a massive prick.
Oh my God. Yeah.
I hate him so much, but like everyone else seems to, and he seems to get along well with everyone except his son. And like somebody who's been in an abusive situation with a parent, and everyone's like, well, I don't see that. They just seem fine to me. And it's like, well, yeah, that's because you're
not the parent or you're not the child. Yeah.
But like the plot is that his dad comes aboard because he's like briefing him on a potential captain assignment that Riker's been offered. And it's just, Riker, trying to avoid him the whole episode because, as we find out.
He thinks he can just come here and have a heart-to-heart with Riker.
Yeah, and like, I'm sorry, but, when you cut ties with your son when he was 15, like, you don't fucking get to come back and have a relationship with him. Like, you're done. The
exact quote was, I hung in for 13 years. If that wasn't enough, that's just too bad. So as the child of I am the child of a narcissist. And I have read a lot of books on how to be the child of a narcissist. Obviously, my mother does not believe she's a narcissist, but my mother is a narcissist. And it was a hard episode for me, to be honest, because I was watching a lot of my mother come through that character. And I was like, okay, so I get why he's written this way, but why was Pulaski written this way? Well, like the fact that she's basically gaslighting Riker into family is family and you need to forgive him. I was like, are you kidding me? He doesn't need to forgive him. He abandoned him as a child after his mom died.
Yeah.
I don't know. This episode was tough.
It's a bad message. And also then like they like make up by having a martial arts fight at the end where his dad cheats to beat him and then they like hug and make up. Like, what is that? That
was so bad. And it was a clear, parallel to Worf's ascension ceremony thing. Because it was like, oh, we don't understand how barbaric this thing is where Worf's getting hit with these glowing sticks while he talks in Klingon. But they're hitting each other with sticks while they talk about important, emotional things or whatever. And it was like, okay, I get it, writers. It's very, very heavy-handed, but I get it,
Also, the sport they were playing, Ambujitsu, was something they made up for the show. But it's like a blind martial art because you put like a visor over your face so you can't see, and you're supposed to just hit each other with the sticks. And the sticks do like have a thing at the end that lights up and does a little like electric fizzle when it's like pointing at you. So I assume that's how they know. Okay, that's where they are because my stick is doing the hum thing because it's pointing at them.
Oh, that makes sense.
But like, it's dumb.
It's dumb. It's so dumb. And then it's so toxic masculinity, let's go beat each other up on the court to prove to prove who's more of a man. I don't know. I hated it. I hated the whole episode. Plus this whole thing where Riker finally gets his command, but then it's like, oh no, that's not what this episode is about. And then he just looks at Picard at the end and he's like, nah, I'm going to stay here, man.
Yeah. There should have been, because the whole episode forgot about him getting his command and it was just about him and his relationship with his dad. So there's no and getting that assignment, it's not you don't need to have a relationship with your dad to go be a captain. You can take that captaincy. So they don't really explain why he decided to stay. And I understand that, there's a good reason to want to stay because like I've said before, the Enterprise is one of the best assignments you can get in Starfleet.
Right, yeah, and even the dad pointed that out. You're second in command of the Enterprise,
Yeah, but they just, I don't know. Also, we find out that Pulaski and Riker's dad used to be a thing.
Yeah, they sure did. And, I was just like... Pulaski's been growing on me slowly, but also I've been keeping in mind she's going away,
Right.
And this episode knocked her right back down to the bottom for me. Just 100%. I was like, okay, so just because you like to, I'm trying to think of a non-vulgar way to say this. Just because you like to sleep with his dad doesn't mean that he's not a terrible father. You know, like this whole idea that because I couldn't even understand what she was explaining about how he was the only one that lived. He was the only one that had the will to live through whatever like horrible thing his entire command had gone through or whatever. And I was like, oh, so he let his entire command die and he's the only one that survived. I was like, that's brave. Oh, okay. You know, like I was very confused about that story. And the whole thing was just like, you don't have to make up with your shitty parents. Like, no. I know this was the 80s and we had a little bit more like family is forever and they can be as shitty as they want to you and you still have to be nice to them, but you don't have to make up with your shitty parents. My mother, quote unquote, dumped me 6 years ago because apparently that's something you can do to your children. And I don't want anything to do with her at all, you know, and I don't think it should be my responsibility after she told me to kill myself to be in her life. And I don't think it was Riker's responsibility to be a part of his dad's life. And I was just sitting here as like,
especially when he was abandoned as a kid, as a minor, he was abandoned. Like, there's no, like, you don't come back from that. That's
no. And especially when your response to it is, I stayed for 13 years, buddy. You know, like, I'm sorry, at least until they're 18, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I just hated it. Plus I hated his name. I couldn't believe the name Kyle was still popular at that point in history. But I guess let's talk a little bit about the B plot. So I thought Worf was being all shitty because of his dad. Because of Riker's dad. Because remember how we had the whole discussion about Worf's daddy issues like 4 or 5 episodes ago, right? So it was weird that it turned out to have nothing to do with the dad. I thought it was going to be like he was upset that his dad was a warrior and his dad was off retired in the mountains. Isn't that his story? That his dad's off in the mountains somewhere or something, just waiting to die. I can't remember what he said a couple episodes ago.
Oh, yeah. No, it was the other guy, his dad didn't die in battle, so he's just like... Oh,
it wasn't Worf's dad. It was the other guy's dad. Oh,
yeah, it was the other guy.
Okay.
Worf's dad died when he was a kid. When his colony was
I was remembering that other Klingon story as Worf's story. Okay. I mean, it had one of my favorite Worf lines, which was, with all due respect, be gone. It was like, okay, that's pretty good.
But and Wesley is like, you know, trying to figure out what's going on with Worf, and he like goes and digs in, and he finds out.
Didn't you think the writing for Wesley this episode was weird though? He's running around like a kid on 12 Slurpees. I don't know. He was like super hyper, like when he comes up to Worf in the hallway, and then when he figures out about the Rite of Ascension, he's like, I don't know, it was weird writing for Wes because he's supposed to be this like super genius and everything, and I thought it was really weird. Gee whiz, yeah, I found out about this thing, you know.
But yeah, it basically turns out it's like it's the 10th anniversary of Worf's Rite of Ascension, so it's basically like his birthday, and he's just in a bad mood because he doesn't have any family to celebrate it with. So they were like, "Oh, okay, well, we'll get something set up for him in the holodeck." And apparently, the way you celebrate a Klingon birthday is you walk down a line of Klingon warriors who stick you with pain sticks.
Klingon pain sticks.
Yes.
That's the official trademark, I think. No, I just was like, this looks like fun. This is what you were depressed you were missing out on.
There's I've seen like an edit of that scene where like they just like keep looping Worf getting stuck, where everyone just stands there staring at him as he just keeps getting stuck over and over again.
I like how they're all just like, I guess this is how it is, so let's not interfere while they watch him getting tortured.
I mean, he's doing it voluntarily, so you know.
He is, that's true. So when they're in there, though, why was Pulaski there? Pulaski's nobody's family, especially Worf's. Was like...
as we see later in this season, they are gonna like try to build up like a Pulaski Worf friendship. And I think that why am I blanking on her name? Pulaski's actress. I think she had said at some point that she thought that if she had stayed on the show, they might have like tried for a Worf Pulaski romance.
Oh, interesting.
That'd be weird.
It would be so weird.
I don't know about that, but So I think it's probably they recognize, well, yeah, Pulaski just feels like, oh yeah, she's also on the ship. She doesn't, other than Elementary, Dear Data, she doesn't really seem to have episodes yet where she's had like strong like connections with other people.
The one where she took the dude up into space with Data because of the aging disease, I thought gave her some like, points, but it wasn't a lot of points.
Well, and that was a Pulaski focused episode, but it wasn't so much of Pulaski having relationships with everyone else on the ship, right?
Right. Yeah, it was about her, but not her interpersonal relationships with the crew.
Right, because with everyone else, you get the feeling, oh yeah, they hang out after hours. They go and do poker games and shoot the shit. But with Pulaski, it's like, oh, I guess we'll invite her to poker.
Or to Worf's birthday party. I have a question about the turbo lifts.
Okay.
What is that noise they make? Are they hydraulic powered? Steam powered? What is that noise?
I think they use anti-grav lifts. I could be wrong on that, but yeah, anti-grav lifts is basically just like a hovercraft technology or something like that.
So maybe it is for like the release of like of air that makes that sound, because I meant to ask before and it stuck out to me this episode because I heard it and I was like, that's a really weird sound for those doors to make when they open.
Well, I think anti-gravs are actually like a miniaturized impulse engine, which is like the impulse engine is just a direct conversion of energy into thrust, which would be nice if we could get that technology, because right now, we can't just like have batteries that we can convert directly into like thrust in space. We have to convert it to mechanical energy, or we have to use like a chemical propellant or something like that. But yeah, I assume it's probably just miniaturized impulse engines that just push the turbo lift around.
I guess I said turbo lift, but I meant all the doors, because like when they go through, doors? I said turbo lift, but I actually meant doors.
Oh, yeah, so you're talking about the.
Yeah,
that's what you're talking about.
I'm sorry, that was my mistake. Yeah, I meant all the doors. What's causing that sound that makes it sounds like air or steam is releasing?
I would say I've actually saw somebody like make one of those doors at home. Like he modified his bedroom door to open like that, and he did use a hydraulic to get that noise.
Hydraulic is what I assumed. I don't know that in 400 years from now we'll actually be using hydraulics, but it makes sense for the 80s.
I don't see why we would get rid of a really useful technology.
I just figured we'd have something better by then.
If it works, it works. How they actually work, though, is like there's some dude standing above the set who just pulls the doors back when they need somebody.
Is that how it works? That's funny.
Yeah, they just have like some dude in a t-shirt who just... And then they have the sound in post.
So, there's a couple things that I took offense to in this episode. The first one is that Deanna says Pulaski's greatest skill is her empathy. And it's something like she's well known for her empathy, because she says something about Pulaski's chicken soup for the guy with the flu. I don't know why he's getting the flu, but it's because I thought we eradicated that stuff. But she's like, I need to get, like she says like PCS or whatever, and it's Pulaski's chicken soup. And then Deanna's like, yes, she's her greatest skill is her empathy. She's a dick to everybody. She's like, I don't think of her as having empathy at all. I think of her as like kind of cold and awful. It was a weird statement. Like I was like,
one
what?
of those things where they're like, we know that everyone hates this character, so let's have the other characters like talk her up or something, so that that we might trick the fans into thinking, oh, she must be okay. Deanna likes her.
Right. Okay, but that's nothing in comparison to the worst writing I've ever heard on Star Wars, which is it's Star time Wars? For us to have Star Wars. No, I've got some the women. The children. They're animals. So I slaughtered them like animals is the worst Star Wars dialogue. But the worst Star Trek dialogue is it's time for us to have a talk. So lower your shields.
Yeah.
I had to pause it. I was laughing so hard, and I don't think that's what they were going for, because it was a really tense fight scene between Riker and his dad. But oof, I did not like that line. I thought it was really bad.
Yeah.
What'd you think about Worf's surprise party?
I thought it was sweet.
Like the way they set it up. They're like, Deanna's like walking him and he doesn't know what's going on. And they're like, but she ruined the surprise, right? Didn't she? She like kind of told him what was going on.
I don't remember if it was meant to be a surprise party, but I don't know. I thought it was nice. It was sweet in a Klingon way.
I thought it was sweet. I was surprised that Deanna didn't go. But because she stepped away at the end or whatever. We had a principal at my school retire, one of the assistant principals this week. And so the main principal came around at like 8 o'clock in the morning and said at 1 o'clock, come down to the main office, blah, blah, blah. And we gathered everybody together. And he pulled the assistant principal into the office and she thought she was doing an exit interview. And then the office manager ran into the principal's office and said, there's a fight. So they both came running out of the office and we were all standing there and we all yelled and it was cute. And she cried. And it reminded me of that. I was like, oh, that was, but she told me afterwards, she was like, I was so thrown off because I was in that, oh no, a fight. I got to go break it up. And then all of a sudden there was this huge group of everybody who works in the school. And I was like, yeah, that is funny. I'm so sorry. I didn't know that's how they were going to do it.
Well, but listen, I would also get Worf into a room by saying there's a fight going on, and he would get up. He would get up, not being like, oh no, there's a fight. He'd be like, oh hell yes, I'm getting in on this.
Yeah, I know. So you can see why it reminded me, right? I was like, oh yeah, that's so cute. I thought it was great. I really liked it. And he didn't sit there being all poopy about it either. He was like, oh, this is so cool. And he just went through with the ritual. Like he could have nitpicked things and been like, oh, this isn't supposed to look like this or whatever. But he was appreciative of what they had done for him as a family. And I think that was one of the best parts of the episode because it was showing us the difference between blood family being completely awful and terrible, like Billiam Sr.
Yeah.
and then there's the family that you choose, which obviously, I know I've talked about this before. I love the family you choose type stories. Yes. So that really, it resonated with me for that part. But man, I never want to see Riker's dad again. Do I have to see Riker's dad again?
Nope. We never see him again. Thank God.
Yeah, that is, my notes say that he is the worst and I never want to see him again. I loved the little Data shrug that he did at the end. Do you know what I'm talking? He looked at him and he said he like shrugs at Picard because Picard shrugs at him. It was really cute because it was such a moment of like Data androidness of, oh, he did that motion, so I'll do that motion, Mm-hmm. So the next one that we're going to talk about, and I apologize because I only have 2 pages of notes, is called Pen Pals. It is the 15th episode of the 2nd season. It first aired on the 1st of May, 1989. The teleplay was by Melinda M. Snodgrass. The story was by Hannah Louise Shearer, and it was directed by Winrich Colby.
So, it feels like we're getting more into the A-plot, B-plot stuff here, because both of these episodes had a very well-defined A-plot, B-plot.
They did.
And the B-plot is a Wesley thing yet again.
Yet again, and it was kind of a boring Wesley thing, too, instead of an interesting Wesley thing.
Well, it's just, him learning authority, and Riker giving him the Uncle Ben speech.
Yes, with great power comes great responsibility. No, responsibility and authority go hand in hand.
Yeah. But in this one, they're investigating a planet system in which a bunch of the planets have like the same kind of geological instability. So they decide, hey, well, if this is going to be a research project, Wesley could use some command experience. So they put him in charge of running the scientific team that's examining everything.
Right. Which everybody is for except for Pulaski, because her empathy is her greatest skill.
The main core of the episode is that Data receives a transmission from one of the planets from a little girl, and he responds to it, which was a big no-no. Because it's a pre-warp civilization. They should have zero contact with them. But Data decides to, just like talk to her over the radio. It was so human of Data to do. Yeah, it was a very human thing. But he realizes that he messed up. So he goes to Picard and is just like, yeah, so I answered the phone when I shouldn't have. Right. Picard's like, okay, all right. all right, let's see what we got to do with this one. But, they find out that her planet's going to, like, break up soon and, have a sentient species go extinct from that. And so then they have to do the whole, like, prime directive thing. Should they interfere?
They have a big discussion. Like, they sit around trying to decide whether or not these people should die like they're gods while they decide whether or not they should be gods. Like, it was very frustrating. And there's a huge ass debate about, like, whether or not fate is sealed and if we're involved in that. And I was getting really frustrated with that discussion because I was like, why are we discussing God and fate and plans? Like, we're beyond that now. Why is this conversation even happening?
We shouldn't believe in fate in the 24th century.
And it didn't follow Star Trek at all. Like, it didn't follow The Next Generation. For now, I'm almost 2 full seasons through. It just felt weird and out of place. Like, it was the 80s. Did the, like, satanic panic moms get in the writer's room or something and be like, you need to bring up the God exists? I don't understand why there was this big push towards, like, a higher power that has a plan for us and fate and all this discussion that they were having in that room.
Well, and also, like, when Picard is bringing up different scenarios of times that they should interfere, he's like, for like an earthquake or for like an asteroid heading to the planet, they'll say, of course. He's like, well, what if it's a war? Do we get involved then? And I'm like, well, I mean, that does seem like a very different circumstance, wouldn't you say? I don't think you can compare an asteroid to getting directly involved in the interspecies politics of a planet.
Politics, right? Yeah.
So he's like, see, that one we're not so sure about. Now it gets more murky. I'm like, well, yes, because those are differences. You can't compare those two.
Right. Well, but it was like that kind of like you're debating on the internet, right? Where you're arguing with someone and then they just keep making it more and more ridiculous. That's what it felt like. I was like, it actually reminded me of how I reached out to our, in my school district, I reached out to our person that runs our computer systems and said, it's time we add non-binary as an option for gender, because having to just put nothing is like, why can't instead of nothing, we have non-binary be there? Right. And I was told that it's because when we researched it a few years ago, because of all the other alternate pronouns that exist, they felt like it was too much work to put non-binary in there, because if they did non-binary, they'd have to consider all the other pronouns that people identify themselves as, which is just an excuse not to do it in the first place, right? Yeah. And that's what this felt like to me. Like, well, if I make enough excuses, we can just walk away and blame the prime directive and I won't have to have that on my hands, There's
a really easy solution to that, and it's to make the pronoun field a text field rather than a drop down. So you can just write them in.
I know. And so did the person talking to me. I could tell by their, like, very specifically chosen words that they were on my side. But it had come down from, like, the head of the district at the time kind of thing. But it's that argument, right? Like, well, if we do this, then we do this, then we have to do this, and then we're opening the floodgates,
That's
and it's
slippery
like,
slope
no.
fallacy, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and that's what it felt like Picard was doing, and it did not seem like good writing for Jean-Luc, because then Data goes and opens the computer, and his little friend is talking to him, and all of a sudden Picard can hear her little Jeanette from the Chipette's voice, and he's like, oh no, now we can't kill that small child. And I was like, oh good, so that's all it took there for you, Picard, was for you to hear the voice? Because I don't know, it was such a weird debate. They're in there debating all these things, and all it took for Picard to be like, okay, I have to save this child, is to hear the voice. It's a weird episode.
Also, like, we never see any of her other species. Like, does she just live alone in that house?
She's got brothers and a family, but I know.
We never see anyone. It's like she's the sole representative of her species that we ever get to see.
And then what was with the random racism? Because when he decides to beam back with the kid, even O'Brien says, and you're going to take that? He looks at the alien child and says that, and I was like, you guys know aliens? What in the heck what are you doing?
I don't think it's that he's being racist against aliens. I think it's more of a, why are you bringing a pre-warp alien onto our ship.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. It felt weird to me. And then they all freak out when they see her too, like, oh, that's a child, and it really reminded me of Monsters Inc. with the 2319. 2319. Yeah, and George Sanderson, I was just like, I don't know. I was trying really hard to find value in this episode, and I was having a hard time.
It's a pretty weak Prime Directive episode when it comes down to it, especially because they have the ability to erase her memory of the event so that no harm is done to their society by having interacted with aliens. And then they, are able to identify what's causing the planetary instability, and they're able to fix it. So, and they could do that without having to interact with anyone. So, there's no problem. Everything gets fixed.
So far, the Prime Directive episodes have made me wonder if the Prime Directive is good or not. Because every time the Prime Directive comes up, it's like, we can follow the Prime Directive or we can let all these people die.
Yeah. And especially because they're able to fix everything and they erase her memory so that, no harm is done to her. There's no real actual stakes or consequences to violating the Prime Directive here, other than you might end up facing a court-martial for it later, but Picard seems fine with it, so Data's not going to be prosecuted for this, and they repair the damage. So if they're going to make a choice, there should be some consequences both ways. If they decide not to, then they let the planet die. If they decide to do it, there should be something. But they're able to just deal with it so that, oh well, everything's fine, she doesn't remember, and they're all fine now. I don't know. Give us a choice in which there isn't one obvious solution that has no downsides,
Right. Yeah, no, I do know. That's why I think I had such a hard time with this whole episode. I don't know. I did not like it. But there is a really good thing that happened. So they're in 10 forward, and Riker is hitting on some science officer because she's got blue on, right? And he's having drinks with her. And Wesley comes in to look for some advice, and apparently Guinan is off tonight. So he sits down at the table. And, Riker looks at the lady and says, "I'm sorry, I have to go. It's a family emergency." I was like, oh, my heart. It's like, oh, family emergency. And I just thought it was so sweet. I was like, oh, I love it so much. I mean, the Wesley plot was, I think, arguably better than the pen pal plot.
Yeah, because it's Wesley learning how to navigate, running a team, and when to, listen to the expertise of the people that are working for you, and when to make the decisions as the team leader and stuff like that. It's learning how to have authority, because and Riker points out, it's like, you've already got responsibility. You know how to be responsible, but now you need to learn how to have and use authority.
Right.
I think the best example of authority I have ever seen is Captain Pike in Star Trek Discovery. His leadership style is leadership without ego. His job is there to listen to everyone, listen to everyone's expertise, find out what it is they need to do, what it is they want, and just give the authority to point them in the right direction.
Right.
He doesn't lead like he has his thing that he wants to do and everyone has to listen to him. He's like, no, I am here to empower my crew, and I really like that. So that's not exactly how Wesley's going about it, because he does go, he's like, because there's one study that he wants them to do, and they're like, well, if we set that up, it's going to take hours. And he's like, oh, okay. But
and they make him doubt himself. Yeah, I know.
But then he's like, well, yeah, go ahead and do it. And once he tells them to do it, they're fine to do it. It's just letting him know, it's like, well, it will take a while.
But that's the thing that saves the planet in the long run. If he had not found his voice and his authority to tell them to do it anyway, the planet would not have been saved, and Data's pen pal would have died, and everything would. So if he hadn't gotten that sense of confidence and learned to stand up for, no, I really do think this needs to be done because I'm the leader and I was given the responsibility, then the planet wouldn't have been saved. So
thanks, Wesley.
Yeah, thanks, Wesley.
Yet again, you saved the day.
So I want to talk about the holodeck, because Star Trek outside is so weird. Like, he rode his horse, you know?
Uh-huh.
And it's like they're outside. Mm-hmm. And it's like on Earth kind of outside. And it's so weird because we're so used to being on a soundstage. It's such a different production value.
Yeah.
You know, like
location
quality.
Shoots.
I don't know. It takes you kind of out of Star Trek a little bit because all of a sudden you're like, it's a different film quality or something. Probably just because the lighting and the way natural light looks versus studio lighting. But all of a sudden you're like really taken out of it because you feel like you're really like, now you're actually seeing them in the real world. Here's the actors out in the real world, but really they're on the holodeck, right? I don't know. Something about the real world Star Trek is really weird to me. I mean, maybe I'll get used to it, but it's every time they do these holodecks where they go out into like an outside, I'm like, oh, weird. We
haven't had a lot of location shooting on the Next Generation yet. They've mostly just been on sound stages.
Right.
But they start to get more location shooting as we go along, so you'll get more used to it. It is a little jarring when you go from stage shoots to location shoots, just because when you're shooting outside, well, you're just working with natural light. You don't have studio lighting. So, it can feel a little weird, but...
yeah, it's interesting. Not bad, but interesting, you know?
Also, this is, I think, the first episode where we've established that Picard is an equestrian, which that's interesting because that's like the third Starfleet captain who's an equestrian, because Pike's an equestrian, and Kirk... I think the first time we actually see Kirk ride a horse is in Star Trek Generations, but Bill Shatner is an equestrian. He, raises and breeds horses, and he wanted to get that worked in there. So, yeah, we've got like 3 different starship captains who all are horse riders.
We also had Earl Grey hot again this episode, so we're really starting to establish those Picard things, right? Like at this point, we're really like getting to the point where it's like, okay, these are the things that are Picard's like defining character traits or whatever.
There, I think, have been. I think it's T. Earl Grey hot is said like between 6 or 8 times in the series. I
know. I looked it up once when I first started watching it. It's just not that many times.
But it's. It's an iconic thing. Actually, I want to say that Star Trek Picard may almost like be catching up with how many Earl Grey references they have.
Does he say it a lot?
Other people say it like to him. There was in the first episode of season 2, there was like 2 different T. Earl Grey hot jokes. First, it was Guinan saw him come into her bar and she's like, I'm gonna need some tea, Earl Grey piping hot. And then like later he's like his housekeeper says, well, you forgot you forgot to drink this, so it's very much now tea Earl Grey cold.
Okay, that's pretty funny.
and in the first season, Picard orders tea Earl Grey decaf to just give you he's old now.
right, yeah. So the bit where Riker's like, these people are professionals. They won't have any sort of personality conflicts you need to worry about. What the hell was that?
Oh,
like, of course people have personality conflicts. Like...
Right, but keep in mind that this is still early days in TNG, and the edict from Gene Roddenberry was that the Starfleet crew weren't supposed to have conflicts with each other.
Oh, I see.
in the future, humanity has grown beyond the need for conflict with each other, so all the conflicts is supposed to come from outside the episode, but like that's boring, and it's a hard way to write. And also, conflict is not bad. Conflict is good.
Right. Actually, like people having different opinions and then talking it out and figuring out common ground is not a bad thing.
Yeah, it's it's good to have like, and I think the show, once they get away from you can't have interpersonal conflict, they still do it in a way that's very enlightened, and people come to good agreements with each other or reach synthesis.
I mean, just this week, a lady that you would consider to be a professional in a professional job snapped at me for absolutely no reason because she was having a bad day. Like, it's just human to have human reactions things. So to say that will evolve beyond interpersonal conflicts and everybody will love each other is just not human. There's going to be conflicts.
And that's fine.
Yeah. I don't know if I really have anything else to say about this one. Do you?
Oh, I got one.
The Betazoid cats.
Yeah, I was just going to say Betazoid cats. Yeah, so when Picard goes on the holodeck with the horse, Deanna mentions how he didn't strike her as an animal man. He's like, "Oh, don't really do pets or small animals, but I like horses."
Except for fish.
Well, except for fish, yeah, but that's an ornamental thing.
True. I just thought of that when he said it in the episode too.
Yeah. But Deanna mentions how she had a Betazoid cat growing up, but that.
And I looked it up in the Memory Alpha, and the only time the Betazoid cats are ever mentioned is this one episode.
I know.
I'm trying to imagine how cute a Betazoid cat would be. It'd have all black eyes.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. That would be it. Of course, you kind of if you get a black Betazoid cat, you can't get those cute pictures where it's just a void with yellow eyes.
Because it would just be a void.
Just be a void. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it made me want a Betazoid cat really bad. I was like, ooh, I want a Betazoid cat. And I tried Googling to see if anybody had done any fan art of Betazoid cats, and I couldn't find any.
Hey, I know that I've got some artists listening to this podcast, so I put it out to the world.
Awesome. Yes, I would love to see an artist rendition of a Betazoid cat. So I think that's everything for today. Thanks for joining us. I'm Ari.
And I'm GayFesh.
And until next time,
live long and prosper.
Thanks for watching.
Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and ring the bell to get notified when new episodes come out.
We're on Twitter at RestBothWorlds.
Join our Patreon at patreon.com/restofbothworlds for bonus content and hear your name at the end of each episode.